for words. Simple, concise, utterly terrifying. First Officer Drax Vornel of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force stared at the urgent message flashing across his command console. His 3 hearts skipped several beats in perfect, horrified synchronization. It had to be a mistake. Some cosmic joke. Perhaps a training simulation that nobody had bothered to label properly. "Command, please verify this alert," Drax said, his voice wavering only slightly. The calm, professional tone he'd perfected over 2 centuries of service was threatening to abandon him entirely. The reply came almost instantly. "Verification code Alpha 97 Tau. This is not a drill, First Officer Vornel." Well, blast it all to the void. 3,000 years of peace. If you could call the constant squabbling, minor territorial disputes, and occasional trade embargoes between the 17 major species peace, about to be vaporized faster than a Levaxian ice beetle on the surface of a neutron star. "Humans," Drax muttered, speaking the word like a curse. His epidermis rippled a deep violet, the Thelosian equivalent of breaking into a cold sweat. Were they detected? The Arnaxian expanse, near what used to be the Sol system. Of course, they would return to the scene of the crime, wouldn't they? Poetic in a macabre sort of way. Drax's third eye blinked rapidly, a nervous tic he developed in his youth and never quite managed to shake. "Alert the Council," he ordered. "Priority Omega. And give me Admiral Plex. She needs to know the Admiral is already aware," the voice from command interrupted. "She's ordered a full mobilization of the peacekeeping fleet. All ships are to converge on the Arnaxian expanse, including yours, First Officer." Drax suppressed a groan. His ship, the GCS Unwavering Justice, was a diplomatic vessel, certainly well-armed. No self-respecting council ship would venture into deep space without enough firepower to at least make a decent showing, but hardly suited for what might be coming. "Acknowledged," he replied. "Setting course now." Vornel out. As the communication ended, Drax slumped back in his command chair, all 3 of his arms hanging limply at his sides. The bridge crew was staring at him, their expressions running the gamut from curiosity to outright panic. "Sir," Tactical Officer Nairi Cowris asked, her antennae twitching nervously. "Is it true? Have the humans actually returned?" Drax nodded grimly. "So it would seem, but that's impossible." Science Officer Zoltan Brax exclaimed, his scales flushing a bright orange in agitation. Their world was completely sterilized. Nothing could have survived. Evidently, Drax said dryly, something did. He activated the ship-wide comm system. "Attention, all crew. This is First Officer Vornel speaking. We have received orders to change course immediately for the Arnaxian expanse. Prepare for extended warp travel and potential conflict. That is all." As the bridge crew scrambled to comply with the new orders, Drax pulled up the classified historical archives on his personal terminal. He'd studied the human war extensively at the Academy. Everyone did, but that had been over a century ago. It was time for a refresher. The files were extensive, though heavily redacted in places. Humans, Sol System, Earth, a primitive species by galactic standards, barely achieving spaceflight before they were discovered by a Zentari exploration vessel. Initial contact had seemed promising. The humans were curious, adaptable, and surprisingly resilient for such fragile-looking creatures. But then came the incident. The details were still classified at the highest levels, but the outcome was clear enough. In a span of just 27 standard cycles, the humans had gone from welcome newcomers to the most feared species in the galaxy. Their military capabilities had been severely underestimated. Their capacity for violence, even more so. The Galactic Council, in its infinite wisdom, Drax's inner monologue couldn't help but add a hefty dose of sarcasm to that phrase, had deemed the humans too dangerous to be allowed to continue their expansion into space. The decision had been unanimous. Earth must be neutralized, and so it was. The combined might of the Galactic Council's fleet had converged on the Sol system. The battle was brief but devastating. Earth was bombarded from orbit with specialized weapons designed to eliminate all complex life, while leaving the planet's overall ecology intact. A quarantine beacon was established, warning all ships to avoid the system on pain of immediate destruction. That had been 3,000 years ago. And now, somehow, the humans were back. The ship lurched slightly as it entered warp, the stars outside the viewports stretching into brilliant streaks of light. Drax closed the historical files and opened a secure channel to Admiral Plex. First Officer Vornel. The Admiral's stern face filled his screen. Plex was old, even by Zinthari standards. Her crest had faded from its once vibrant crimson to a dull rust color, and the tentacles framing her face were beginning to wither. But her eyes were as sharp as ever. "I assume you've been briefed on the situation." "Only the basics, Admiral," Drax replied. "Humans have returned. Details are scarce. Details are non-existent." Plex corrected him. "All we know is that 3 of our outposts in the Arnaxian expanse have gone dark in the past standard week. The last one managed to transmit a partial message before communication was lost. The word humans was the only part we could decipher." Drax's third eye blinked rapidly. "With all due respect, Admiral, that's not much to go on. It could be anything. Pirates using old human tech. A practical joke. A garbled transmission. I'm well aware of that. First Officer," Plex said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "But the Council isn't taking any chances. Not with humans. The fleet will assemble at these coordinates." She transmitted a data packet to Drax's console. "We will conduct a thorough investigation. If it turns out to be nothing, then we can all go back to our regularly scheduled patrols and diplomatic missions. If not," she didn't need to finish the sentence. "If not, they were potentially facing an enemy that had nearly brought the mighty Galactic Council to its knees 3 millennia ago. An enemy that, by all accounts, should have been extinct." "Understood, Admiral," Drax said. "The unwavering justice will be there in approximately 72 hours. Make it 60, Plex ordered. And Vornel, review the old battle records. If this really is the humans, we will need every advantage we can get." The communication ended, leaving Drax with an uncomfortable knot in his digestive tract. Review the battle records? Those were nightmares captured in data form. But orders were orders. He sighed heavily and turned to his navigation officer. "Jex, increase warp to maximum sustainable levels. We need to reach the rendezvous point in 60 hours. "Yes, sir," Jex replied, their cybernetic fingers dancing across the control panel. "Though engineering won't be happy about the strain on the engines." "Engineering is never happy," Drax muttered. "That's practically their job description." He stood up, stretching all 3 arms above his head. "Lieutenant Nalvi, you have the bridge. I will be in my quarters reviewing historical data." As he made his way through the gleaming corridors of the unwavering justice, Drax found himself thinking about the tales he'd heard as a youngster. Bedtime stories designed to frighten misbehaving children into obedience. "Be good," his parental units would say, "or the humans will come for you in the dark cycle." It was ridiculous, of course. The humans were gone. Had been gone for 3,000 years. And yet, in his quarters, Drax settled into his relaxation pool and activated the immersive historical archives. The liquid around him vibrated as the system calibrated. Then the familiar sensation of temporal displacement washed over him as the archive engaged. Suddenly, he wasn't in his quarters anymore. He was standing on the command deck of the GCS Righteous Fury, flagship of the fleet that had converged on Earth 3,000 years ago. The scene was chaotic, officers shouting, alert klaxons blaring, damage reports flooding in from all quadrants. And on the main view screen, a human ship, much smaller than the Righteous Fury, practically primitive by comparison. And yet, the Council vessel was clearly in distress. "How is this possible?" the captain of the Righteous Fury demanded, all 4 of his eyes wide with disbelief. "They're using our own shields against us. They have adapted the technology somehow," a science officer replied, her voice tinged with awe and terror. "They have reversed the polarity of our shield harmonics. Our weapons are being redirected back at us." Drax watched, fascinated despite himself, as the human vessel executed a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible given its apparent level of technology. It darted between two Council ships, causing them to fire upon each other in their attempt to hit the nimble Earth craft. The archive shifted, showing a different scene. Ground combat this time. Council forces engaging human defenders on what appeared to be a lunar base. The humans were hopelessly outnumbered, outgunned, using technology that was centuries behind their opponents. And yet they were winning. A human soldier, laughably small compared to the armored Centauri troops, was moving with impossible speed, using the low gravity to launch himself from position to position. In his hands was a crude projectile weapon, practically an antique, but he was wielding it with devastating effectiveness. Their adaptability is remarkable, a voiceover commented as the scene froze. Notice how this human has modified standard mining equipment to create an improvised weapon capable of penetrating Centauri battle armor. They accomplished in days what would take most species years of research and development. The scene shifted again, this time to what appeared to be a Council war room. High-ranking officers from a dozen different species were gathered around a holographic display of the Sol system. "We have no choice," a Zinthri admiral, not Plex, but someone with similar features, was saying. "Conventional warfare isn't working. The humans are learning too quickly, adapting too effectively. If we don't end this now, they will reverse engineer enough of our technology to pose a genuine threat to the entire galaxy." But complete planetary sterilization, a Thelosian counselor objected. "Surely there are other options." "Negotiation. We tried negotiation," the admiral cut in. "They demanded full membership in the Council, with all the rights and access that entails. Access to all our technology, all our worlds. After what they have shown themselves capable of, it would be suicide." Drax watched as the debate continued, ending with a fateful decision that would condemn an entire species to extinction. Or so they had thought. He disengaged from the archive, returning to awareness in his relaxation pool. The liquid had cooled, indicating that several hours had passed while he was immersed in the historical record. His communication panel chimed. "First Officer Vornel," Lieutenant Nalvi's voice came through. "We are receiving a priority transmission from the Council fleet. Admiral Plex is requesting you join the command briefing." Drax hauled himself out of the pool, his skin shedding the excess liquid automatically. "Put it through to my private terminal. I will take it here." The screen on his desk illuminated, showing not just Admiral Plex, but a dozen other high-ranking officers from various ships in the hastily assembled fleet. Most he recognized. A few were unfamiliar. "First Officer," Plex acknowledged him with a terse nod. "We were just discussing the preliminary findings from the advanced scout ships." "And?" Drax prompted when the Admiral hesitated. "It's confirmed," she said, her voice unnaturally flat. "Humans have returned. They have established a base on what remains of their lunar colony, and they have already destroyed 3 of our outposts." A chill ran through Drax's entire body. How many humans are we dealing with?" "Unknown," Plex replied. "But they appear to be using technology far beyond what they possessed when Earth was neutralized." "That's impossible," one of the other officers interjected. "Even if some humans survived off-world, they wouldn't have been able to advance their technology to that degree. Not in isolation. Unless they weren't in isolation," Drax found himself saying. All eyes turned to him. The quarantine beacons were designed to keep ships out of the Sol system. What if some humans were already outside the system when Earth was attacked? What if they had been hiding, watching, learning all this time? The silence that followed was deafening. "An interesting theory," Plex finally said, "and one that we will have plenty of time to explore once this situation is contained. For now, our priority is to assess the human presence and determine the appropriate response." "You mean whether to attempt communication or just skip straight to another genocide?" The words were out of Drax's mouth before he could stop them. The relaxation pool must have lowered his inhibitions more than he realized. That Plex's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Choose your next words very carefully, First Officer Vornel." Drax swallowed hard. "My apologies, Admiral." I spoke out of turn. Indeed you did, Plex said coldly. But your point, however inappropriately expressed, has merit. The Council is divided on how to proceed. Some advocate for immediate military action. Others suggest caution, perhaps even diplomatic overtures. After what we did to their homeworld, another officer scoffed. I doubt they are in a diplomatic mood. We will know soon enough, Plex said. The unwavering Justice will be the first ship to make contact. Drax's 3 hearts nearly stopped. Admiral, your ship is primarily a diplomatic vessel, is it not? Plex's expression was unreadable. Yes, but then you are uniquely qualified for this mission. You will approach the human base under a flag of truce. Assess their numbers, their capabilities, their intentions. And most importantly, discover how they survived and why they have returned now after all this time. And if they open fire the moment we enter the system, Drax asked, trying to keep the tremor from his voice. Then we will have our answer, Plex replied grimly. And the Council will respond accordingly. As the briefing concluded and the terminal went dark, Drax found himself staring at his own reflection in the blank screen. His skin had turned an ashen gray, the Thelosian expression of extreme stress. Humans, he whispered to his reflection. What could they possibly want after all this time? Deep down, he already knew the answer. The same thing any species would want after having their homeworld destroyed, their civilization shattered, their very existence nearly wiped from the galaxy. Revenge. And now, he was being sent directly into their path. Brilliant career move, Drax, he muttered sarcastically to himself. Join the peacekeeping force, they said. See the galaxy, they said. Never mentioned becoming the first casualty in the Second Human War. With a resigned sigh, he activated his comm bridge, set course for the Sol system. It seems we have a diplomatic mission. The universe, Drax decided, had a truly twisted sense of humor. The unwavering Justice dropped out of warp at the edge of the Sol system, a respectful distance from where the quarantine beacons had once floated. The beacons themselves were gone, destroyed or deactivated. It wasn't clear which. Drax stood on the bridge, his posture rigid, all 3 hands clasped behind his back to hide their trembling. The view screen showed the distant sun, smaller and slightly redder than in the historical archives. 3,000 years had changed it, just as they had changed everything else. Scan for human vessels, he ordered. Science Officer Drax hunched over his console. Nothing yet, sir, but there's considerable electromagnetic interference coming from the 4th planet. Mars. Drax supplied the old human name without thinking. Any signs of life or technology? Difficult to tell at this range, Drax replied. But there appears to be an artificial atmosphere. Terraforming technology, perhaps. Tactical Officer Cowris let out a low whistle, her antennae quivering. That's impressive. Even with our current technology, terraforming an entire planet takes centuries. Perhaps they have had help, Lieutenant Nalvi suggested quietly. The implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If the humans had allied themselves with another spacefaring species, or worse, conquered one and taken their technology, the situation was even more dire than they'd imagined. Let's not jump to conclusions, Drax said, though his own mind was racing down the same dark paths. Continue scanning, and prepare a diplomatic broadcast on all frequencies. Standard greeting protocols translate to all known human languages. Sir, Drax interrupted, his scales flushing a deep purple, the Zinthari equivalent of going pale. I'm detecting a ship. It just appeared. No warp signature, no approach vector. It's just there, on screen, Drax ordered. The view screen shifted, focusing on a point of space that had been empty moments before. Now it was occupied by a vessel unlike any Drax had ever seen. It was sleek, almost predatory in its design, with no visible weapons or propulsion systems. Its hull was a deep, matte black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Size comparison, Drax asked, his voice hoarse. Approximately 1/4 the mass of the unwavering Justice, Drax reported. But sir, its energy signature is off the charts. I have never seen anything like it. Are they scanning us? If they are, I can't detect it, Drax admitted. Their technology is completely foreign to our sensors. They are hailing us, Communications Officer Trell announced suddenly. Audio only. Drax took a deep breath, all three lungs expanding fully. Put it through. A voice filled the bridge, smooth, calm, distinctly human if Drax's memory of the archives was accurate. Galactic Council vessel. This is Captain Alexis Novak of the Terran ship Reckoning. You are trespassing in sovereign Terran space. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. Terran, not human. Interesting distinction. This is First Officer Drax Vornel of the Galactic Council ship Unwavering Justice, he replied, striving for a tone of diplomatic neutrality. We come under a flag of truce to investigate reports of human, excuse me, Terran, activity in this sector. A pause, then a sound that Drax recognized as human laughter. Not the warm, friendly kind, but something colder. Harder. Investigation? How thorough? Tell me, First Officer Vornel, do you know what happened in this system 3,000 years ago? Drax swallowed hard. I am aware of the historical events, yes. Historical events. The human repeated, voice dripping with sarcasm. What a delightfully sanitized way of describing planetary genocide. Captain Novak, Drax said carefully, I assure you, the current Galactic Council bears no hostile intent toward your people. We seek only to understand your return and to open diplomatic channels. Another pause, longer this time. When a human spoke again, her voice had lost some of its edge. Very well. As a gesture of good faith, I will allow you and 2 officers to board my vessel for preliminary discussions. No weapons. Is that acceptable? Drax exchanged glances with his bridge crew. This could be a trap. Almost certainly was a trap. But it was also exactly the opening they needed. That is acceptable, he agreed. Please transmit docking protocols. No need, Novak replied. We will handle the transportation ourselves. Stand by. The communication ended abruptly. Drax turned to his officers. Brax, Cowris, you are with me. Nalvi, you have the bridge. If we don't return or make contact within 2 standard hours, withdraw to a safe distance and alert the fleet. Sir, Nalvi objected. With all due respect, this is obviously a trap. Obviously. Drax agreed with a grim smile. But it's a trap we need to walk into. The Council needs information, and this is our best chance to get it. Before anyone could raise further objections, the air around Drax, Brax, and Cowris began to shimmer with an iridescent light. Drax felt a strange, tingling sensation across his skin, and then they were elsewhere, standing in what appeared to be the command center of the human vessel. It was surprisingly bright and spacious, with graceful curves instead of the utilitarian angles favored by Council ship design. And it was staffed by humans. A dozen of them, at various stations, all turning to stare at the 3 aliens who had suddenly appeared in their midst. Molecular teleportation, Brax whispered, awestruck. Not just of inorganic matter, but of living beings. That should be impossible. Lots of things should be impossible, a human said, stepping forward from what was clearly the captain's position. And yet here we are. She was tall for a human, with dark skin and hair cropped close to her skull. Her uniform was simple but elegant, black with silver accents, no visible rank insignia or decorations. Captain Novak, I presume, Drax said, reflexively extending his primary right hand in what he hoped was still the human greeting gesture. The human looked at his 3-fingered appendage for a moment, then clasped it briefly in her own 5-fingered one. Her grip was firm but not aggressive. First Officer Vornel, she acknowledged. And your colleagues? Drax introduced Brax and Cowris, who were both doing poor jobs of concealing their fascination with the human ship and crew. Welcome aboard the Reckoning, Novak said. If you will follow me, we have prepared a more suitable venue for our discussion. She led them through corridors that hummed with unseen energy, past rooms filled with technology that even Brax, with his scientific expertise, couldn't begin to identify. Humans nodded respectfully as they passed, though Drax noticed more than a few hostile glares directed their way. Finally, they arrived at what appeared to be a conference room. A large table of some polished material, not metal, not quite wood, dominated the center, surrounded by chairs designed to accommodate various physiologies. Clearly, the humans had experience with non-human visitors. "Please be seated," Novak invited. "Refreshments will be provided shortly. I understand Thologians prefer their liquids carbonated, while Zinthari favor warmth over flavor. We have done our best to accommodate your preferences." Drax settled into a chair that adjusted automatically to support his three-armed frame. "You seem well informed about council species, Captain. We have had 3 millennia to study our neighbors," Novak replied, taking her own seat at the head of the table. "Knowledge is survival. May I ask," Drax interjected, unable to contain his scientific curiosity any longer, "how you achieved molecular teleportation? The energy requirements alone would be beyond your current understanding." Novak cut him off, not unkindly. "Let's focus on the diplomatic situation first, shall we? Technical exchanges can come later, if we establish relations." "Of course," Drax said. "Perhaps you could begin by explaining how your people survived the events of 3,000 years ago, and why you have chosen to reveal yourselves now." Novak's expression hardened. "We survived because we were already among the stars when the Council decided to sterilize our homeworld. Small colonies, exploration vessels, mining operations in the asteroid belt. Not many, a few thousand at most, but enough. But the historical records indicate that human spaceflight was primitive," Kauris said, her antennae twitching in confusion. "Your species had barely reached your own moon." Novak smiled thinly. "Your records were based on what we wanted you to see. Humanity learned quickly after first contact that the galaxy was a dangerous place. We compartmentalized, showed you our outdated technology while developing our real capabilities in secret. A wise precaution, as it turned out," Drax acknowledged. "But that still doesn't explain the 3,000-year absence, or your current level of technological advancement." "We hid," Novak said simply. "We scattered to the edges of known space, established hidden colonies. Some of US found refuge with species who weren't part of your precious council. Civilizations you deemed too primitive to bother with. We learned from them, taught them, grew stronger together." She paused as a door slid open and a human entered carrying a tray with various containers. The server placed a bubbling, lavender liquid before Drax, a steaming crimson beverage before Drax, and withdrew without a word. "As for why now," Novak continued after taking a sip from her own cup, "that's simple. The Galactic Council is weakening. The Zentari and Pryaxians are on the brink of open conflict over the Kaldorian trade routes. The Veshtari plague has decimated your core worlds. Your attention is divided, your forces stretched thin. You have been monitoring Council communications," Drax realized. It wasn't a question. "For centuries," Novak confirmed. "We have had observers within your territory since before your grandparents were born. Waiting, watching, preparing. For revenge," Kauris said quietly. Novak's eyes flashed. "For justice. For our rightful place among the stars. A place that was denied to us when your council decided we were too dangerous to exist. And the destroyed outposts." Drax asked, "Was that justice as well?" For the first time, Novak looked genuinely surprised. "What destroyed outposts?" The 3 council officers exchanged confused glances. 3 council outposts in the Arnaxian expanse have been destroyed in the past week, Drax explained. "The last transmission mentioned humans. That's why we are here." Novak frowned, tapping a small device on her wrist. Another human appeared almost instantly, a tall, muscular individual with pale skin and striking blue eyes. "Commander Takai, what do we know about council outposts in the Arnaxian expanse?" The commander looked confused. "Nothing, Captain. We have no operations in that sector. It's too close to Zentari space for comfort." "Could it be another human faction?" Drax suggested. "Perhaps a splinter group that doesn't answer to your authority?" Novak and Takai exchanged meaningful looks. "It's possible," Novak admitted reluctantly. "Not all Terran groups agree with our approach to reclaiming our place in the galaxy. Some advocate for more aggressive methods." "The children of Earth," Takai said grimly. They believe the only good council species is an extinct council species. We have had disagreements with them in the past. Fanatics, Novak elaborated. A small faction, but dangerous. They see themselves as the righteous avengers of old Earth. We have tried to contain them, but she was interrupted by a piercing alarm. Takai's wrist device flashed red, and his expression turned grave. Captain, we have multiple warp signatures approaching. Council warships, at least 30. Admiral Plex, Drax breathed. She must have grown impatient waiting for our report. Or she never intended to wait at all. Novak snapped, rising to her feet. This diplomatic mission was just a stalling tactic while your fleet assembled. No, Drax protested, standing as well. I was sent here in good faith. I had no knowledge of it doesn't matter now. Novak cut him off. Commander, battle stations. Alert the fleet. Your fleet. Cowra squeaked. How many ships do you have? Enough, Novak said cryptically. She fixed Drax with an intense stare. You have a choice to make, First Officer. Return to your vessel and join your council fleet in what will certainly be a devastating conflict for both sides. Or stay here, help us contact these children of Earth, and prevent a war that neither of our peoples truly wants. Drax's 3 hearts pounded in his chest. His career, his loyalty to the council, everything he had worked for, all balanced against the possibility of preventing another human council war. A war that, given what he'd seen of human technology, the council might very well lose this time. I need to contact my ship, he said finally. Explain the situation to Lieutenant Nalvi. She will listen. Novak nodded. Commander Takai will show you to a communication station. But be quick. Once your warships enter firing range, diplomacy becomes considerably more difficult. As Takai led Drax from the conference room, the first officer's mind raced. The children of Earth, rogue humans striking at council outposts, perhaps deliberately trying to provoke exactly this confrontation. And now 2 fleets about to clash, each believing the other had fired the first shot. The communication station was small but elegant, like everything else on the human ship. Drax initiated contact with the unwavering Justice, relieved when Nalvi's face appeared on the screen. First Officer, are you all right? The council fleet has arrived and is demanding the human vessel surrender immediately. I'm fine, Drax assured her, but we have a serious situation. The humans, the Terrans, on this ship aren't responsible for the outpost attacks. It's a splinter group called the Children of Earth. Captain Novak is as concerned about them as we are. Nalvi looked skeptical. And you believe her? I do, Drax said firmly. Patch me through to Admiral Plex. Now, moments later, the Admiral's stern face filled the screen. First Officer Vornel, I trust you have a good reason for not returning to your vessel as ordered. Admiral, Drax said, dispensing with formalities, we are making a terrible mistake. The Terrans on this ship aren't our enemies. There's a rogue faction called the Children of Earth responsible for the outpost attacks. If you attack now, you will be starting a war with the wrong humans, and one I'm not certain we can win. Plex's expression didn't change. An interesting story, conveniently exonerating the humans who currently hold you captive. I'm not a captive, Drax insisted. I'm a diplomat doing his job. Please, Admiral, at least open communications with Captain Novak. Hear what she has to say. What she has to say is irrelevant. Plex replied coldly. The Council has made its decision. The human threat will be eliminated once and for all. This time, we will ensure there are no survivors. Drax stared at the screen in horror. You never intended peaceful contact. This was always going to be an extermination mission. The Council protects the galaxy, First Officer. Sometimes that requires difficult decisions. The same difficult decision that was made 3,000 years ago. Drax's voice rose in anger. The one that resulted in billions of deaths and, ultimately, failed anyway. The humans survived. They have thrived. And from what I have seen, they have advanced far beyond what the Council is prepared to handle. Plex's eyes narrowed. You sound like a human sympathizer, Vornel. Perhaps you have been compromised. Or perhaps I have learned from history. Drax shot back. End this madness, Admiral, before it's too late. You have 5 minutes to return to your vessel. Plex said, ignoring his plea. After that, you'll be considered a casualty of war. The transmission cut off. Drax stood frozen for a moment, then rushed back to the conference room. Novak was there, speaking rapidly with several officers. "Captain," Drax interrupted, "the Council fleet intends to attack. Regardless of your innocence in the outpost matter, they have decided all humans are a threat." "History repeats," Novak said bitterly. "How much time do we have?" "Minutes at most," Drax replied. "My ship has been ordered to retrieve us, but you are considering staying," Novak finished for him. "Making a stand. Interesting choice for a council officer. I joined the peacekeeping force to prevent conflicts, not participate in genocides," Drax said firmly. "What can I do to help?" Novak studied him for a moment, then nodded sharply. "Commander Takai, escort Officer Drax and Officer Cowers back to their vessel. They shouldn't be forced to choose sides in this conflict." "And me?" Drax asked. "If you truly want to help," Novak said, "I need everything you know about Admiral Plex's tactics. I need to contact our fleet before the shooting starts." As Drax and Cowers were led away, both throwing confused and concerned looks over their shoulders, Drax made his choice. He would stand with these humans, these Terrans, against the Council's misguided aggression. Not for revenge, but for justice, for peace. "The Admiral favors overwhelming force," he began. "Shock-and-awe tactics. She will target your propulsion systems first, then weapons, trying to disable rather than destroy outright. She will want prisoners for interrogation." Novak nodded, absorbing the information. "That's consistent with historical records." "Thank you, First Officer Vornel." "Just Drax," he corrected her. "I suspect my council rank won't matter much after today." A small smile flickered across Novak's face. "Perhaps not, but maybe you'll earn a new one." The ship's alarms suddenly changed pitch. "Multiple vessels decloaking," an officer announced. "Terran fleet now visible to Council sensors." On the main view screen, Drax watched in amazement as ships materialized out of nowhere. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. A vast armada of vessels surrounding the Council fleet, which suddenly looked pitifully small in comparison. "Gods of the Void," Drax whispered. "You could have annihilated the Council at any time." "We could have," Novak agreed. "But that's not our way. Not the way of most of us, at least." She activated a communication channel. "Open a channel to the Council flagship. Let's see if we can end this peacefully." Admiral Plex's face appeared on screen, her expression shifting from confidence to shock as she presumably received reports of the massive Terran fleet now surrounding her ships. "This is Captain Alexis Novak of the Terran Alliance," Novak stated calmly. "As you can see, Admiral, if we wanted war, this would already be over. What we want is recognition, reparations for Earth, and your help in locating and neutralizing the actual threat, the children of Earth." Plex's mouth opened and closed several times before she found her voice. "The Council does not negotiate under threat, human." "Then don't see it as a threat," Novak countered. "See it as an opportunity. An opportunity to right a historical wrong. An opportunity for true peace between our peoples. An opportunity to face a common enemy together, rather than destroying each other." Drax stepped forward into view of the transmission. "Admiral, I formally request that the Council open diplomatic relations with the Terran Alliance. As First Officer of the Unwavering Justice, I offer myself as liaison." "Vornel," Plex hissed, "you are committing treason." "No," Drax said firmly. "I'm fulfilling my oath to the peacekeeping force. Peace, not war, not genocide." A tense silence filled both command centers. Finally, Plex spoke. "Stand down weapons. Hold position." She glared at both Drax and Novak. "I will consult with the Council." The transmission ended. Novak turned to Drax, an expression of cautious hope on her face. "It's a start," she said. "A small one," Drax agreed, "but perhaps enough to change the course of history. This time for the better." As the two fleets hung in space, weapons primed, but not firing, Drax felt something he hadn't experienced in a very long time, something that had been missing from the galaxy for 3,000 years. Hope. Not for revenge, but for reconciliation. For a future where humans and council species could stand together against threats like the children of Earth. A future built not on fear, but on understanding that it wouldn't be easy. The weight of history, of genocide and survival, of hatred and fear, would not be cast aside in a day. But it was possible. And for now, that possibility was enough. What happens next? He asked quietly. Novak looked out at the stars, at the home her people had nearly lost, and the galaxy they had fought to rejoin. That, she said, is entirely up to us.